Good morning, I'm Bernadette Smyth. I'm the founder and director of Precious Life in the north of Ireland. It is my great privilege to be here today to speak to you and to share my testimony of my journey in the pro-life movement. When Dawn contacted me a few weeks ago and shared with me the theme about the Eucharistic presence of Jesus, who we all know is truly present in the Blessed Sacrament, my heart rejoiced, because for me as a leader in the pro-life movement, without Jesus I cannot and would not have been able to continue or achieve the victories that God has allowed me to partake in the 25 years that He has given me the privilege of being the leader of in Northern Ireland. And you know, we're living in a time, and I know you will all agree that, you know, abortion has been legalised in Ireland north and south. We need Jesus more than ever, and we need to be the Eucharistic presence of Jesus in the public square. And when we receive Jesus, we become that Eucharistic presence to people, whether we're campaigning, whether we're lobbying, or whether we're reaching out to abortion vulnerable women or those women who have had abortions. So it's so important for me, and I am just like so in awe of how when we receive Jesus, we become His hands and feet in the public square. My testimony to you today is very simple. I was brought up in a beautiful Catholic family. We attended Eucharistic Holy Hours, missions, and you know, my faith came from my mother and father. But when my mother tragically died, I can say overnight, literally, I was a teenager, that really impacted me in a very detrimental way, because the God who I believed in, the Jesus who I believed in, took my mother and left a very angry teenager who lost her faith overnight. It was a long, hard battle of months, if not nearly a year, where I just literally completely was on a road to no town. And you know, something happened when I met my husband. I could see the light of day, and I know many of you who are watching today have lost mothers, fathers, siblings, and are very hurt, as I was. And you know, does God exist? I didn't think He existed, because you know, this merciful God took my beautiful mother in her 50s and left a very young family. So I fell out with God. I fell out with my faith. And even walking back past the chapel where I live, I just could not even step my foot into that chapel. I snubbed it, I walked past it, I was angry. Until one day I was walking past it, and it was like a grace, some sort of a grace came upon me. It drew me in that door, and I got on my knees before the Sacred Heart, who we know is Jesus of Divine Mercy, the beautiful red candles. And I lit that candle and I looked up, and I broke my heart, because I just like offloaded all my hurts. And something happened at that time. I left that church, and I knew God did exist. I met my husband that same year, and we got married, but we married in the Church of Ireland, because I still was struggling with the relationship with Christ, with my Catholic faith. So this day I was visiting my sister and the parish priest, of my parish was there, and we had a chat, and he was like, I never see you I haven't seen you in the church, and I shared with him, and we had a chat about my situation and how I felt, and he said, well, if your husband's in agreement, why don't we have a chat about you could have your marriage accepted in the church. I had started back to Mass but knew I couldn't receive the Eucharist, and that really pains me, because I know, and I've always known, that Jesus is truly present in the Blessed Sacrament. And to go to Mass and not to be able to receive Holy Communion was very, very difficult for me. But thankfully my husband and I met with the priest, and it was agreed, because being married outside of the Catholic Church is not a sacrament. So Derek and I were married in the Catholic Church, and shortly after we had our first baby. And our first baby was very ill at birth. And that really affected me in a bad way, because it was like I was facing the grief of the loss of my mother. I was told that my first baby would die because she had a bowel obstruction, and she had emergency surgery. She was baptised, and I was there. I had a chest infection and couldn't go to the bedside of my little baby. I couldn't go to the Royal Victoria Hospital and be with her, because I had an infection, and they told me if she survived the first 24 to 48 hours that there was hope. I got on my knees and I pleaded with God that He would give her to me and my husband, and let us be her parents. And He did. She survived the surgery. She came through that terrible, the aftermath of the surgery that left her very ill. Thank God she, in a number of weeks, we were able to parent her and bring her home. I became a very overprotective mother. Shortly after Danielle, and within a year, I was pregnant again, and with my second baby, and that's when I gave birth, that everything that I had lived through, the fear of my baby dying, the death of my mother, manifested in a very detrimental way for me. I became very fearful. I was overprotective to an extreme. I became very depressed. And through that period of time, I was on a journey of faith that God was working in a powerful way, because I had an invitation to go to Medjugorje. This was 1989, I'd went to Medjugorje. During my pilgrimage there, I met this elderly woman who was on her knees at 3 o'clock in the afternoon praying the Divine Mercy. And she was praying out of this little red book. And I was intrigued as I watched her praying. The holiness that surrounded that elderly woman, and the little red book just really touched my heart. And I asked her what she was praying, and she shared it with me and gave me the red book. I left Medjugorje. I returned home with a realization of the mercy of God. Every day since I returned from Medjugorje, I went to the chapel and I prayed the Divine Mercy at 3 o'clock, imploring God's mercy over my life and my family's life. But to remove that fear, I was scared of everything. I woke with fear in my life. I went to bed with fear. So in the early 1990s, then I, as a young mother, started to go to the church every day at 3 o'clock and pray the Divine Mercy. Because I knew that, I could not survive as a mother, as a wife, without the mercy of God. I needed healed from all the pain of grief and trauma and fear that I had been living through for those years. And before I knew, I'd read in the Divine Mercy, or I'd read about this Divine Mercy conference that was taking place in Dublin. And I organised, and I couldn't believe that I was able to do that. I organised to take a bus to the RDS in Dublin. And before I knew it, people were phoning and people were saying, oh, I would love to go. And we took a bus. I took a bus to that Divine Mercy conference. And, you know, that conference just changed my life in such a powerful way. I left that conference with a booklet advising me how I could set up Divine Mercy Sunday and how to organise a Divine Mercy prayer group. You know, when I look back then and I think there was this little girl, teenager, full of fear, who was organising and took people to a conference and then was setting up Divine Mercy Sunday and a prayer group. I'm amazed at how I even was able to do that. But you know, God was definitely in the mix, and He was healing me through this process that I wanted to share with people. I wanted to share with my family also that God is merciful, and that Jesus, I trust in you is something that we all need to do. And that's where my healing began. So I started a prayer group, and this the prayer group was well attended. We started Divine Mercy Sunday, a small group, and from the prayer group, there was a guy from Italy who had been healed through the Divine Mercy, and he was in Dublin speaking at an event, and I really wanted to meet someone who had met Jesus. And if you read the Red Book, the little book shares the testimony of this man who went to Italy, and it's all about Pope John Paul II, who gave him the Divine Mercy image, and he said, if you have the Divine Mercy, you have everything. So I heard the talk, and I picked up some brochures on the Divine Mercy, but I also picked up a number of brochures on various different aspects of family and life. And just sitting in that conference, listening to the power of the Divine Mercy, I opened one of the brochures. And as I opened that little leaflet, there before me was an image of a little baby boy who had died through abortion. And in just a split second, my whole life transformed. I looked into the face of that precious little baby. And for me, I believe that the world stopped. I looked into that wee child's face, and I could see my own children. I had a little boy myself who was 2. It was less than 2 at that stage. I seen the face of Jesus, and I realised that I, as a human being, as a mother, as a Christian, as a Catholic, that I could no longer be silent about the horror of abortion. I believed at that moment that God pierced my heart with a pain that has never healed. I hear the cries of those children. I feel the pain of those little ones. That's 25 years ago nearly. So when I left that conference that day, I knew my life would never be the same. I came back to the prayer group. I came back and shared this with my husband. But I got on my knees, more importantly, and I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? Because I knew that I had to do something to stop the horror of abortion on my baby brothers and sisters, but also to help women who find themselves with unexpected or crisis pregnancies. I started to pray and was led to do a 9-day Divine Mercy Novena by going to the chapel every day at 3 o'clock. So for 9 days, I planned to do this. And whilst I was praying the Divine Mercy every day at 3 o'clock, on day 7, I became very frustrated because nothing was happening. I couldn't see God's plan. I didn't know what He was calling me to do. So I stopped whilst praying the stations, and I looked up to our Blessed Mother, who happens to be Our Lady of Lourdes. And my name is Bernadette, so it's a very powerful place for me. And I take my name very seriously because Bernadette means as bold as a bear. So unknown to me, a person who lacked courage, a person who does not like to be in the limelight, I realised, that God was calling me to do something that was beyond my capabilities, to speak out for his little babies, my baby brothers and sisters. So I looked up at our Blessed Mother and I said in frustration, well, I need a sign that this is what God is calling me to do. And I put before our Blessed Mother the sign that I wanted, and it was, show me you with a baby. And I know many of you will be in the sense of awe and fear when you're praying that, in faith I know that God answers prayers. And, part of me really panicked at that moment, thinking, if I look up at that statue and I see our Blessed Mother holding a baby, I'm running out of this chapel. And, that's just what we have to realise. God is so powerful, and so is our Blessed Mother. So I didn't underestimate that I was going to be given the sign. I didn't know how I was going to be getting that. I didn't know how I was getting that sign, but I knew it was going to happen. So anyway, I got my head down, continued the Stations of the Cross in all sincerity, and just said, please tell me how you want me, what you want me to do. When I got to the 13th station, and I was praying out of the wee red book, the stations, St. Faustina's Stations of the Cross, and I looked up at that station, and there was our Blessed Mother, Our Lady, the Mother of Jesus, holding, what I could see was the broken body. I know that there was no bones broke in Jesus' body, but he lost the blood and water that flowed from his side. As we know, is the healing power of the Holy Eucharist. But I looked up, and there I could see the Blessed Mother holding that broken body, and I started to cry, because I realised that Our Lady holds the bodies of all those little babies that are aborted. And I had that real pain in my heart at that moment of what she felt. And I knelt down, tears in my eyes, and there before me, on the seat just before me, was this little type of relic, and it was my mother, my confidence, and it was Our Lady with the baby Jesus. And I looked up and I was like, how did this get here? But I left that chapel that day. I live about 3 minutes from the chapel. I ran home. And my husband was in the house, and I said, Derek, I'm going to have to give up my job, because I know what God wants me to do. And, God bless Derek. He is now a convert to the Catholic Church, and his conversion came through the Divine Mercy. So that's another testimony. But it was amazing, because he just said, absolutely. He gave me his blessing. I went to my work, which was fashion retail, and I gave my notice in. And the moment I stepped out in faith, I knew that God had called me to do mighty things for him. I knew I wasn't equipped, far from it. A very shy person who was full of fear, never felt good enough, felt everyone else is better than me, had no confidence. But when God calls you to do something for him, he equips you to do it. And that's what God did for me. But he placed within my heart a calling and a pain. And I hear the cry of those little babies every day. And I will never stop defending them until I go before Jesus himself. So this is why I am so delighted and so happy to share with you that with God all things are possible. If you're a person who is fearful or has no confidence and doesn't think God can use you, I can assure you he can use you, because he is a God of miracles. And I thank God every day for the healing that he gave me, from being a person of fear, a person with no confidence, a person who grieved and didn't lost their faith to a person who is full of faith. And I, without Jesus in the Holy Eucharist, I am nothing. With God, all things are possible. And for me, as a girl who left her faith all those years ago, on my journey, I could not do what I do without receiving Jesus every single day. And the Divine Mercy has been such a big part of my life through all my struggles and persecutions. I know that Jesus is within me when I receive him. I want to radiate Christ in everything that I do as a pro-life leader, as someone who speaks out for the unborn children through the media, but also when I reach out to those women who feel they have no other choice but to have an abortion. I want to radiate Christ. And how can I do that? I can do that because I am receiving Jesus every single day. And Jesus loves those children more than I love them. Praying the Divine Mercy is a vitally important part of my life. I still organise the Divine Mercy Sundays. We pray the Divine Mercy every day in our office at 3 o'clock because the Divine Mercy was what started me on this journey. It was a journey of healing. It was a journey of realisation that Jesus, I trust in you, will never let you down. If you're listening to me today and you're struggling with fear, or you just feel that maybe God has a plan for you to do something big for him, Jesus, I trust in you. Receive Jesus in the Holy Eucharist and your life will transform. And I really pray that for you. And I asked you to pray for me at Mass every day. I asked you to be part of the greatest revolution that Pope John Paul spoke about. The greatest work on earth is a revolution of life, is a revolution of faith, is a revolution of transformation of this world. Because Jesus, I trust in you, is who we are. We are part of Jesus. And if we trust in Jesus, he can change everything. He can change what happened in Ireland. He can bring Ireland back to a culture of life. But it begins with you and it begins with me. So I'd like to end with that challenge, that we become part of the mercy movement that will be the merciful hands and feet of Christ to the world, to Ireland, and to every person that we meet, and especially abortion vulnerable women. Thank you for listening to me. It's been my pleasure and my privilege to join you today. And I hope next year that we can get back into the RDS and we can start praising God together as a united people, a people of life and a people of faith. God bless you all for the rest of this conference. And I hopefully I'll see you all next year.